Thank you. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we're moving to the public comment period of the evening. We got one person signed up, Mr. Joe Black. And Mr. Black, if you want to just take the podium and say your name, your address, and after you say that, your 3 minutes will begin when the clerk is ready.
Joe Black, 340 Howard Gap Road. This is my friend Charlene. I'll introduce Charlene later. Just a rhetorical comment. Could we have a handicap deck or something on the creek so handicapped could fish maybe? Better access to the creek for handicapped people maybe. Maybe clear some bushes to make more beach area for families. Just a suggested thought, idea. There has been more law enforcement visibility on Howard Gap Road. I've seen 2 of them get moonlighted. And Charlene, yes, that's you. Yes. She wants to say thank you for slowing down Howard Gap. Her friends are no longer roadkill. I found her at the truck stop. Yeah, you're a cutie. Yeah. She likes to get lots of attention. But, anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we thank you for your comments.
Charlene says thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, is there anybody else that wishes to speak during the public comment period? All righty, hearing none. Moving on to the approval of the minutes. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make the motion.
There is a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any updates?
I will say, Mr. Black, Mark and I have discussed that very topic of the deck back here. I have a couple of friends who have MS who also expressed some interest, so I think that's something we might take a look at.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know there's lots of people go to the creek and play on the summer day,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be a bit crowded, and the handicapped, I think it'd be more for it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah,
Got
Mayor
something
and
more?
council,
Yeah.
Jim approached me about that after the last meeting, and I've had some conversation with our Parks and Rec Director, Greg Walker, to spend some time looking at some potential access points that would be easiest, and probably spots that are stocking, spots that we know of where they put fish in for the fishermen.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for bringing that up, Jim,
Yep.
and thank you, Mark and
We'll follow
Greg.
up on that.
Any other updates from council? All righty, moving on to the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns related to any item there? All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
There a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. And we have no discussion items, but I'll just go ahead and ask if there's any business from council that y'all want to bring up. If not, we'll just go into the manager's report. All righty, Mark, your report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council, and nice to have a brief meeting here. I'll run back through the items and had a little bit more follow-up on one of them. So I mentioned last week we had our recent meeting with Retail Strategies that went well back on June the 19th, and had some good feedback and discussion. A couple, Mayor and Councilman Player were here for that. And the next steps is they'll be preparing a draft recruitment plan that they'll be given to us by the end of the summer, is their goal. So we'll be looking forward to receiving that. And as usual, if you have any thoughts on particular retailers, or ideas or strategy, please feel free to contact me, and I'd like to keep a list going of items and ideas that people have as we kind of circulate this into a recruitment plan and try and implement it. So please be thinking about that. And next thing on the town center in general, a couple things. I mentioned last week, Eric Roof and I had met with Buchanan Construction a couple weeks ago, and basically tell them kind of the parameters of the project and history and, you know, what went on with our most recent developer. So they're gathering information and looking at potential parties that they can talk to or partner. So that happened a couple weeks ago. And then I mentioned last week at Agenda Review that someone from broker from Realty One that I had previously met with, Eric and I had to, you know, explain the town center project. He had brought a group of investors. There are some folks who have done several other projects in the area. They have some capacity. It's been mostly strip-style development. I'd emailed you some of the examples of what they'd done, the West Park Center project on Smoky Park Highway and Weaver Village Shopping Center in Asheville. And they're restaurant owners that have gotten involved with other projects. One of the former restaurants they owned was Asiana. And so spent a bunch of time giving history, background, and they did have a question about if we would consider going above 2 stories on the Highway 25 piece. And so I said, well, I'll reach out. I said it's allowed, but it was restricted to 2 in our previous agreement with the prior developer, and just see if that's, you know, of interest. And I heard back from 3 of you that wanted to limit it to 2 stories. Hadn't heard from Keith. I don't know if you want to talk about it at all, Keith, your thoughts. I mean, I asked you a little bit before the meeting, and Mayor indicated openness to it, considering it. So anyways, that was something that came up. I've shared that back with them. I haven't heard anything more, but I've been giving them information about the values, at least our most recent values on the Highway 25 piece of property that's part of the town center. And then they had interest on the remaining land around the town hall here. So our parcel to the north and south, because we have 2 pieces there, and value information on it. Our value information is really dated, but I shared it with them just for the sake of information on some idea of a ballpark. So they seemed quite interested, and I had a bunch of email engagement with them. I haven't heard anything since the last I shared back about the restrictions on the height and then the values on the 2 parcels. So I'll see if, you know, they want to continue. They seem very interested to be evaluating this and discussing it further, so we will see. But I didn't know if you had any other comments on the height restrictions, but I just wanted to throw that out there, since I just met with them last week about that.
Well, I'm not opposed to a 3-story building. I like the work-live, like Bavard has, where they have the businesses down below and then 2 rows of apartments or condos or whatever they are above them, have the little balconies that overlook the main road and stuff like that. I think it looks really good. I think being right on the 25 corridor, that it should be acceptable. I mean, to me, it's not that intrusive as opposed to a 2-story. And that's just my take on it.
I would agree with that. I mean, I was okay with the 3 stories.
Well, and
What was
I,
oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I stayed with the 2-story, and for me, we've got such a beautiful scenery. When you're driving down 25, I don't want something there that's going to tower over. And to me, I love the live-work part, but I think a 1-story studio-style apartment, I think would suffice for someone to have a place to live. Kind of like a downtown Hendersonville or something where you have it and then that one story where we can still maintain some of our views without having that towering building hanging over the roadway, right along the road front. So that's where my take.
Part of mine came from, it's cheaper and easier to build up than it is out. If we're gonna find people, they're gonna invest in our community and build these buildings, it might be more enticing to them to put the nice retail shops with coffee shops or whatever it is on the bottom, but to have that extra income of being able to justify them spending the money to build with the two levels of living or something of that sort.
They did speak to that as well as being more efficient building-wise. We can go, so C1, we can go to 3 stories. CBD, which is mostly the land back in here, and we have a little bit of CBD out there, we can go to 4 is the height limitation. But, I mean, I don't know what the reaction is to that, and, I mean, we can see more what their thoughts, but they asked that question, and I thought, well, I'll get some feedback here initially, and if that steers part of it, it does, or not, and we'll see, so.
I can understand why any developer would want to go more stories up because it just means more profit margin for them. I just am not interested in having a tall building just in that whole section right there, and then on the left side, you've just got these standard, small town, one-story buildings that I don't foresee them going anywhere. Maybe they will, but I'd really like to see a more of a hybrid blend because we're not going to be Biltmore Park. We're not going to be like Asheville. We all can admit that, we're a through town, but we want to make it as beautiful as possible. And so I'd like to see it blend a little bit better with just no more than 2 stories, although I know the developer would probably want more. But I had one question, and I know you've got other items to speak to, but if we're working with realty brokers and then you're talking to Buchanan Construction, are you telling them that, hey, we've got a contract with this brokerage and we're working with them and you need to partner up with them? I mean, how does that even work? I mean,
No.
we're paying
Yeah.
them for all this work, but we're talking to other entities, and I know that's kind of the way things flow, but how will that blend?
Well, we're only under contract right now with Retail Strategies, so we're not under agreement with anyone else. And McGill's doing some of our engineering firm's doing, we're setting them loose to do some more of that preliminary engineering analysis that we talked about. So they'll be doing that, but we're not under agreement with anyone else. So how that works, just going through this whole process of trying to, at least from a staff perspective, trying to get to a realistic partnership with someone, I really think it's going to take multiple parties to get to the right developer or developers to do this. So when we have this conversation, we'll often mention, if you have, like if it's a builder, some of the builders don't have a lot of experience putting the deal together for a multi-tenant site, something like that. So, their expertise is more in putting the numbers together to build a building. And they may have pockets to be investors in it and things like that, which
And
I
then
think
you're-
what Buchanan maybe was looking at it.
What was the name of the company we're working with? Retail
Retail Strategies.
Retail
Yeah.
Strategies.
Yeah, and they're not a developer.
They're just trying to find the companies that'll go in.
Yes, the gap analysis and then a recruitment plan to help us with realtors and the actual retailers, kind of trying to, and developers, put them together to work and help us with the plan. So those conversations with a Buchanan Construction or the group I just met with last week, the 3 investor partners, and there was a broker that facilitated that meeting from, it was Realty One. That was, in my conversation with them, as I've had with others, if there's someone you can partner with, if you feel you need that help or kind of widen the net as far as finding good tenants, encourage them to do it. But there's right now we have no commitment with anyone. I mean, the kind of first step would be that letter of intent, and while you maybe negotiate a deal and get to a developer agreement. But that's a long-winded explanation of kind of where we're at right now in this thing. The good thing is there's still a good amount of interest out there. The bad thing is, or the challenging thing is, we're not close to, getting a letter of intent with someone to start negotiating a deal. And so obviously these groups are doing some due diligence. Well, number one, they're trying to understand the vision of the town. And then secondly, do they have capacity? Do they have the ideas that we're interested in? And then trying to do some type of preliminary commitment with them.
No, I don't think there's anything with the market right now that's conducive to be really active, but it's good to hear that there's some that are putting some thoughts together and gathering some ideas so that when and if interest rates go down, then maybe somebody can move on.
Yeah, I
something
mean,
to make a offer.
they're always looking for their next deal out there,
Right.
because it takes a long time to put these things together to get, the guts of the agreement. And then you gotta make sure you get your tenants in there, and financing and infrastructure improvements, all those things to get it to where we actually see something coming out of the ground. But no, yeah, it is a challenging development environment. And we had another one today, another company. They have an Asheville office. The name escapes me. Eric had a brief email interchange with them, or exchange, and then I was going to send them some more information. But they have offices in other parts of the country, and they've done agreements or deals with mostly in Florida, and they think they might have some that might be interested here as well. So, we know you want to keep those conversations, get them the information, tell them what the vision is and kind of the general parameters. And they spoke to, and this is another thing, a common theme in these conversations with the developer groups, because we did it with Lewis Real Estate Group and the Waddells, is to do a public-private partnership. And when I say a public-private partnership, it's something where us as the public entity is putting resources into it in exchange for that private group that's committing to build this thing and put most of the resources in to build it. Of course, it becomes theirs, and to make it a profit or not, but to kind of close that gap, to get it closer to what we want versus just what market forces would happen out there. Local governments need to sometimes do public-private partnerships, and our public resources at the prior deal was $150,000 towards a road and demoing the buildings, and we demoed the buildings, and unfortunately got to the end of their due diligence, and they ended it because of transportation improvement issues. So that's another common thing, is the public-private. I can't commit because it becomes a negotiation with council and staff working with someone. This last entity, if they came close to a deal and it becomes a negotiation, we'd also mentioned, if it gets in sensitive things, if you need a discussion in closed session to do that, until you have to get back to kind of the public of what the deal is out here. So that's what's happening.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question, Sheila?
Sure.
Okay. Another thing, I know last week I'd shared that there's a vacancy on the Tourism Development Authority Board. So Jeremy Weber, who was associated with Blue Ghost Brewing, is needing to come off because they're closing. So I know we talked a little bit last week about, do you advertise, do you consider, like, when you have one candidate, we know Roy Dickerson from Babel's Ice Cream is, and he's been active with travel and tourism. He would be someone good to consider. But y'all decided you wanted to advertise, so we're doing that for a month. Got the ad out, and I know Mr. Dickerson's already put his application in, so. But yeah, and it'll serve the balance of an existing term, as the executive director of TDA explained to me, so. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and I've been emailing some of the residents that were obviously most interested what's going on with some of the small cell wireless activity. I had received a email and phone call from Ann Brooks with Crown Castle. So she's been our main point of contact as they've been determining these small cell nodes, they're calling them, which would be these small facilities. And the ASH 08 was the location that they were looking at near Windsor Forest. And obviously we had a lot of residents concerned from Windsor Forest about, well, number one, it not being in the subdivision, but even its proximity along Fanning Bridge Road. And so Ann Brooks let me know Crown Castle has made a decision. They are moving the closest location for that node to Airport Road and Highway 25. So, you know, that split there, it goes west, becomes Sweeten Creek. That's where they're placing it. So that's kind of over now. I won't say never, something can come back up again. Because, I mean, these, as we all use lots of data on our phones, they're going to continue to be looking for locations for these small cell facilities. We're going to see more and more of them out there as they try and accommodate the need. So that was all I had.
All right, any questions from Mark? Any other business from council? All righty, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned.